Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Kirbside podcast. I am your host, Jay Kirby, here joined as always by my lovely co-host, the Scream Queen Bee, the mistress of the macabre, Britt. And tonight, we are joined by Mr. Matt Kelly from Horror Movie Night podcast and We Know podcast. And we are so glad to have you on. Local, I guess you could almost say local Philly guy alongside with me. And Britt reached out, asked if you wanted to hop on, and here you are. So we greatly appreciate you coming on.
Absolutely. I've been podcasting for 15 years. I love recording my own podcasts, and I love being on other people's podcasts. So I'm always anybody listening, if you got a podcast, hit me up.
Yes, there you go. Shameless self-promote. Fantastic.
Look, always be selling.
Always.
Every day.
I base most of my life on the rules I learned from a combination of Vince McMahon and Lloyd Kaufman. Just always ready.
That is quite the combination.
I love it. Although,
Can't argue with the success though.
But wait, who would you say is crazier, Vince McMahon or Lloyd Kaufman?
Oh, absolutely, Vince. I haven't met Vince in person. I've hung out with Lloyd Kaufman a couple times, and like you can tell that Lloyd is like a normal guy. I feel like if I met Vince McMahon, I would never meet the real Vince McMahon.
Yeah, there's always like that face.
Yeah.
Lloyd, every time I see Lloyd Kaufman, he kind of reminds me of like a almost like a Mel Brooks.
So here's the thing. I actually re-released this interview pretty recently on the Horror Movie Night feed. But one of the early interviews I did in my life was I actually got to go to a hotel room and sit with Lloyd Kaufman for 20 minutes to talk to him. Ooh. And what I actually went there to interview him about was, at that time, him and his wife were running this campaign to protect like copyright for independent filmmakers, because like the internet was really starting to crack down on independent stuff, and they were trying to fight for the rights for those videos to exist on the internet. So the interview is really, really interesting, and every time I listen to it, it makes me laugh, because when you start it, he is very much in the character of Lloyd Kaufman. He's just like, "Hey, welcome to Tromaville," like he's doing that whole thing. And he didn't know what I was there to talk to him about. So like we're sitting there talking, and then I'm like, "Well, Lloyd, I actually really want to talk about this stuff that you're doing for the independent filmmakers." And he goes, "Oh, okay, this is a very serious topic." And he like, and just like, and like he still made jokes here and there, but like he said something that I thought was very revealing about how Lloyd Kaufman sees himself, because he said, and it was the most sincere I've ever heard the man speak, but he goes, "Matt, I really appreciate that you want to talk to me about something like this, because most of the time when people have me on their show, they just want me to be the sad clown awaiting death." And I was like,
wow.
And I was like, all right, well, I want to hear about the things that you do for independent filmmakers. And he was like, yeah, let's do it. Like, he's real excited.
That's deep.
Wow.
But I get it. Like, I think he's built this character of like, I'm Lloyd from Troma, gobbledygoo. Like it's just like him, and that's him. If you see him at any convention, he's on from the second he gets to the floor. So I think when he gets to have those conversations about stuff outside of specifically Troma, you get to see that he's like a very real, serious person who cares very deeply about filmmakers.
And it must be such a relief to him also to have that.
Oh, serious. For sure. Like he, fun thing about Lloyd that I learned I've met Lloyd many, many times just from doing horror conventions. He's always there. And I do San Diego Comic-Con every year. And for like 6 years, Troma was our booth neighbor. So like he was right next door to us. So I have a good rapport with Lloyd. I mean, the dude's up there in ages, so I can't say that if you said, "Hey, I know Matt Kelly," he'd probably just be like, "Who?" But like when he sees me, he's like, "Matt from horror," like it's like that whole thing. Like he's like, "I know you're from."
It jogs your memory. It jogs the memory.
But he's been very, very cool about independent filmmakers, so much to the point that like, if you were making a movie, right? You're like, I'm going to make a movie out here in Pittsburgh. I've got $100 to my name, but I'm going to film a zombie movie with my friends. If you contact Lloyd, he will do whatever he can to appear in your movie free of charge.
That's
like
amazing.
Like he'll say like, "Hey, I've got a book coming out. Is there any way you could like get me booked?" Like he'll try to get you to get him booked at like a Barnes and Noble where they're footing the bill for him to fly out there just to do your movie for free. Like, and that the first time I met him was in a Barnes and Noble in the middle of nowhere. Like I drove like an hour north into the mountains, like the Pocono Mountain area of Pennsylvania. And it was me and my friend and then a group of kids who were making a movie, and he was just going to be there for the weekend to do their movie, but he booked himself a book signing at the Barnes and Noble to like foot the bill, basically.
That's awesome.
Wow.
Yeah, he's a good dude. He's a legitimately good dude who like I know when he says this, people kind of roll their eyes, but he is the biggest defender of like art and cinema and independent filmmaking. And I mean, I think that there's a lot to learn from that. Like I say that he's one of my heroes, and it's the honest truth. Like
Absolutely.
the actual heroes that I have are Lloyd Kaufman, Jim Henson, and Mr. Rogers.
Oh,
and I feel like
that's a list.
But you know, like you pull those personalities and you've got like an incredibly creative person, someone who is all about empathy, and then this person who really, despite being kind of the weird kid on the bus, stands up for all these other weird kids on the bus. And like, if I can be that for podcasting, like I am happy to step up and be like the dude who's just like, it's a fucking art form and people work really hard for this art form. And you should respect them for it. And like, they should deserve the attention and like support them and check out their stuff and rate, review, and subscribe and all of that stuff. Like you need those people who are fighting for you all the way up. And that's what I loved about podcasting. I know that you two are involved in the wrestling scene, and I feel like the wrestling scene is getting better about this. But like when I lived in LA briefly, I tried to do stand-up comedy and it was so cutthroat. It was so like everyone was out for themselves. I don't see that in podcasting. I really feel like podcasting has become like the sandbox is big enough for all of us, right? We're all here helping. If I know how to do something that you don't know how to do, I'm going to teach you how to do that thing because I expect that you would do the same for me. If I was like, yo, that theme song is really great. Oh, here's who did it. Hit them up. They're great. You know what I mean? Like there's so many ways that we all help each other out. And I think wrestling is getting good about that because before it was very cutthroat.
For the longest time, because I consider myself a bit of a wrestling historian. You know, wrestling was you have to work harder than everyone in this room, no matter what, so you can be the top guy, so you can get noticed. Well, now wrestling has turned into this huge network of, I know this guy here, and he knows this guy here, and then that guy knows, you know, it's this giant tangled web of people who know each other. And that's kind of how podcasting is, at least what I've noticed.
It's why everyone was making fun of The Undertaker earlier this year, because he had that old man yells at cloud thing about like, oh, they just want to hang out and play video games and be friendly with each other.
Yeah. As
As
much of an Undertaker fan as I am, I can definitely agree with your opinion on that. I
love The Undertaker, but that was like when he said that, I'm like, you know what, old man, maybe it's good you retired. Like we need like the rest of the people from your, I hate to say it like this, but like the rest of the people from your very toxic era of wrestling to get the hell out of there, because there's a reason why some of these dudes, you know, you look at an AJ Styles who's not that much older or that much younger than The Undertaker,
right?
But looks so much healthier because he's been taking care of himself. And he's safe.
See, I had the same argument with my brother that, you know, and we both respect Undertaker very highly. And this isn't us taking pop shots at our favorite wrestler of all time. Yeah. So if he ever listens to this, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Also a big fan. But, you know, we looked at it when Taker was having his match. I want to say I did the math. When Taker was having his matches with HBK at Mania, and he was doing one match a year because that's all he could handle. He's the same age as AJ is now, who's doing it week in, week out. And that is the just sheer difference in the lifestyle.
Yeah.
And maybe guys were tougher back then, but at least wrestlers are seeing past 40 now.
Yeah, you know? I mean, that's the thing. At 35, you were just like starting to look at your retirement from the ring for most of these guys.
Right.
Like, there's still like, I don't know what eras you all grew up on. My wrestling journey was like, I was really into it as a kid. And
Mhm.
I actually weirdly got out of it right as the Attitude Era hit. So
Same.
I missed the entire Attitude Era, and then Bray Wyatt is what pulled me back in because I'm like, yo,
Really?
what is this spooky swamp guy?
Y-
And
Yeah.
I watched all the way
What
up
B
until the
horror
minute.
movie am I watching?
100%. But like my era is what everyone considers the worst era, which is that new generation. But
Not
like
necessarily.
I've said a million times, and I will stand by this, my favorite wrestler of all time, and it's so great that Bray Wyatt's what brought me back into wrestling, because my all-time favorite wrestler was Erwin R. Shyster, IRS. Like
That's awesome.
I love watching IRS
That's
matches.
fantastic.
I love like I want to check out. I keep hearing about how I think it's NWA
Mhm.
has their
Uh-huh.
own like YouTube wrestling channel now or whatever, and
Yeah,
everyone's
so
like, it is new generation throwback.
it's
Like if you
NWA Power, I think is what
Power,
it's
yeah.
called.
They're like, if you're missing when your wrestlers had occupations, like
Yep, like
Like,
Repo Man.
oh my god, the Repo Man,
Duke the
Duke
Dumpster.
yeah, oh my
Dunk-
god,
yep.
those were the best. And like that whole, I know that like it's very easy to like nostalgically look back at like things, but I just think like all of the aesthetic of that time, those Hasbro toys were the best of the Hasbro toy wrestling figures ever looked. Like just like the WWF magazine at that point was like
Oh my
so
God, I
beautifully laid
remember
out.
those.
And there is something really charming about like when you watch that first 2 or 3 years of Raw, I like that it is like
Absolutely.
it's like 2 jobber matches like and then like a bunch of promos and like highlight clips from house shows and stuff like that.
Yep.
I love this. Like I
Mhm.
really enjoy what this is.
That's awesome. See, that was actually when I first started getting into wrestling, was in that Attitude Era, and then like as soon as it kind of dropped off, like around 2006, like I kind of dropped off like after I graduated from high school, and then I started getting back into it again, like around the time that you had said with like Bray Wyatt, Dean Ambrose, like getting interested in Roman Reigns, and finally kind of getting a feel for what NXT is. I saw that, you jerk. And then
Sorry, as an internet fan, I'm obligated to boo Roman Reigns.
Here's the thing I'll say about NXT, because we were talking before we hit record, we were talking about AEW. And
Mhm.
I've dabbled in AEW, and I do think this is my like pseudo controversial opinion, but I feel like a lot of people have a hard time fighting with me on this.
Okay.
Let's hear it.
AEW is absolutely better than Raw and SmackDown.
No doubt.
I still think that NXT runs a more consistent show on a week-to-week basis. I think that
give you that.
AEW has higher highs,
Mhm.
Mhm.
but they also have way lower lows at
Yeah.
times than NXT. NXT, you know what you're getting every single week, and it's always top-notch
You're
3-star
never,
quality.
ever gonna have a bad NXT show.
Yeah, they
No.
run a tight show. And it reminds me of like the other kind of like that wrestling show that I loved was like when Lucha Underground was on. And I was like,
Yes,
Oh,
I
it's
love the
so
Lucha
different.
Underground.
One
It's
of our
so
first
new.
conversations was about Lucha Underground.
It's
when
so
we
good.
met.
It really
So
was.
one of this is you'll appreciate that. Actually, what I'm gonna all right. So how long have we been recording? 10 minutes. Here comes the name
Oh,
dropping.
go
But
for it.
one of my best friends is Paul London's brother.
Really?
So I've been emailing Paul for like a year. We're trying to put together a podcast.
Oh, that's awesome.
We'll see if it ever happens. But when he got signed to Lucha Underground, like it was funny because Paul was a wrestler in the WWF when I wasn't watching. So
See. I'll
Sorry
tell
for
my
interrupting.
story as fast as possible. So
Yeah.
I started when I was literally like not able to walk. My parents
Yeah.
watched wrestling in, the early 90s. I grew up as far back as I can remember. I grew up a Nitro kid.
Yeah.
Then the Attitude Era hit, and mom was super religious, so that was not what she was going to let me watch. Jump forward 5 or 6 years, 2004. I think it was the end of 2003, beginning
we're
of
getting into that
2004.
ruthless aggression type.
I
era.
started watching again. So I started watching guys like when Cena was the new guy,
Yeah.
when Eddie was on the come up, when you had guys like Chris Benoit, Kurt Angle, when those were the guys on the week to week episodes, that's when I started watching again.
Oh, you're
Yeah.
So
killing
when
my
she
heart.
fell out is when I was like in the thick of it.
Well, that's so that was the
So-
funny thing, because I had a friend that loved wrestling
Mhm.
before I got back into it. And like my friend John is the guy who runs Geekscape, which is where
Yes.
Horror Movie Night, all of the
Okay.
podcasts that I produce are for Geekscape. So we go to San Diego every year, and he had his brother sign autographs, and they were taking photos and posting on social media. And my friend texted me and was like, "You are standing next to one of the greatest wrestlers I have ever watched live, and you don't even appreciate it."
Oh
Like,
my God.
but,
I
like,
mean, to be honest, Paul London and Brian Kendrick were one of my favorite tag teams
there
during
well,
that time. They
and
were
that's who
so
Paul is.
talented.
Who you see when you see Paul London on TV, that is who Paul is. Like,
that,
Wow.
that makes me feel warm inside.
there was literally a night, and I hope that he's still working on this because it was brilliant. But Paul is a hardcore horror and like B action movie fan. So that's
Okay.
that's I very rarely talk to Paul about wrestling, if ever. Usually when we're talking, it's about what like shitty Steven Seagal movie we watched. Like, but there was a point where he called me and we were on the phone for 2.5 hours trying to figure out how to do a really good reboot of Nightmare on Elm Street.
Have you figured it out? Have you cracked the code? Because someone's got to figure this out
Well, so
before it's too late.
I don't want to tell the story. We did.
Yes.
And
Okay.
the whole joke that we had was that Paul London plays Freddy because Robert England played Freddy. So it was that England-London connection.
Oh my God. That's
All right.
brilliant.
Sold.
I love it.
Sold.
I love it.
But yeah,
Take my money.
we have an idea for what could be potentially be a full trilogy if we ever take the time to sit down and write it.
God.
But like, it was literally like 2 hours that we were on the phone, like, ooh, we could cast this person as this character. Like,
That
we were getting
sounds
deep.
Amazing.
We were pitching
Absolutely
song
amazing.
cues. It was
Oh.
ridiculous.
I
But
love
like,
it.
those are the conversations I
love-
have with Paul. Like, it's like, hey, let's just talk about horror movies. And it's weird because, again, I didn't grow up watching his stuff. So the first time I ever saw him wrestle was on Lucha Underground. And I was like,
Right.
oh, Paul's pretty good. But like it was like very, very like weird to me. And the other thing that I had, this was the other kind of weird beef that I had with AEW. And from what I've seen, they've gotten better about this.
Mhm.
When AEW first launched, I was so excited. I was so excited for there to be a new company, like a new
Right.
challenger to step up.
Mhm.
And I think what bothered me was that when I watch NXT, it doesn't look, feel, or sound anything like a WWE product. Like, it does feel very uniquely its own thing.
Mhm.
Right.
But I remember watching the first 2 or 3 episodes of AEW, and I'm like, this feels like I'm watching Raw. Like, it feels like it's better wrestlers and a better story, but like, there wasn't anything that I felt visually was setting it apart from the aesthetic. And that kind of like bummed me out. I was like, I really
Right.
wanted this. Like, I like that NXT has that like that ECW vibe
It's got
of
that
like,
underground look to
yeah,
it.
like it feels like you're just like,
Yes.
this is just scrappy, hungry dudes. And I think that AEW, like, it's great. Like, the fact that AEW can play these big arenas and can get these crowds is awesome. But there was that part of me, and I guess it is like that Philly part of you that's like, yo,
Mhm.
home of
You're
ECW.
used to going to the
23.
2300.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's what I mean.
where
Like, it's like,
everything's dark. That's
I
like
want
part
more
of the
to,
that's
yeah,
part of the aesthetic to like Lucha Underground.
yeah, I
That
wanted
looked
that
like it was
for,
this
I wanted that.
grimy, like shady part of town, like warehouse that they set up this big set with, oh my goodness.
Oh,
Yeah.
You're,
That's what-
you're forgetting one thing. Oh, I'm sorry. Go
Oh,
ahead, Matt.
No,
I was
you
gonna
go.
say, if you're gonna go to the 2300, you can't. If you're gonna build like have anything set up like that, you gotta have at least a cheesesteak place like 2 buildings down.
Yeah, no, 100%. And like, that was like my biggest, and it's such a stupid beef, but I was like,
Yeah.
man, I really wish that they did something that really made this pop as like, this ain't your mom and dad's wrestling show. You know what I mean? And it just looked, and now I see like clips from it and I'm like, okay, they're doing a lot better at like making it feel and look different. But yeah,
Right.
that first like month I was like, ooh, I feel like they
But
made a mistake making it look
to-
so much like what's already
To
on.
their credit, though, if that's your only complaint about the company,
Oh, that's a
they're
great
doing
kickoff.
something good.
No, and they are, and like I'm looking forward to when this pandemic is good and truly over.
Mm,
yeah.
I've got big plans for like my own personal life, but
Same.
I want to get back into being able to watch wrestling, because the other thing was like the pandemic. I couldn't watch wrestling during the pandemic because it was too awkward with no audiences.
Right.
Very awkward.
But also, like, when I stopped watching it, I was also like, you know what? It's great to have like my Monday, Wednesday, and Tuesdays back to like
Right.
just do whatever, pop on a movie,
Mhm.
like go read a book. Like, dude, 'cause, like,
Yes.
I literally was like rushing home from work to watch 3 hours of a show that I only kind of liked on Monday nights for like 4 years. Like that's
So-
Stockholm syndrome at a certain point.
I mean, you're not wrong.
So I'm gonna make this comparison, and because with you two being like so like just kind of going back and forth talking about NXT, WWE, AEW, would it be fair to say that those three are like this generation's like WWF, WCW, and ECW in a sense?
I think so. I think NXT, weirdly enough, I mean, I guess if the rumors are true, this does make sense. But I feel like NXT has found itself in that ECW field. And like now there's like, now, you know, more and more people are like, has ECW always kind of secretly been the spot where WWF was like getting the not
I
ready
mean,
for primetime players moved up?
If you look back, like if you look at like 93, 94 ECW, it is all these guys that are about to blow up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you see Jericho straight out of Japan, and then like a month later he's in Nitro.
Yeah.
But you also have Chris Benoit, who also did a little bit of time on ECW before I think he went over.
That was him jumping between. All right, I've got a weekend in Japan, then I'm wrestling at the place in Philly, and then I guess I'm going down to Atlanta for WCW, and I'm going back to Japan. Like he was popping in and out, you know. And I kind of feel the same way with, you know, NXT, and especially up until, I don't know, maybe 5, 6 years, like right before AEW, actually. That's how I felt about Ring of Honor.
Yeah.
They were grabbing guys right before they blew up. And then as soon as they blew up, they were somewhere big and better.
I think one of the other things that I do really like about NXT is because when I took the break from wrestling, I took the break from all of it. Like
Right.
even the things that I loved, I was just like, you know what? I'm just going to sit this out. And something that I used to talk about this with a coworker who was a big wrestling fan too, is I was like, the thing that's impressive to me about NXT is that in the like, 10 years? I don't even know if it's been 10 full years, but however long it's been around.
Pretty close.
It's getting close to 10 years. In those 10 years, we have seen so many distinct classes of NXT roster. And
absolutely,
there's always that rough growing pain when like a huge group gets moved out. But like they are so good at quickly getting us associated with the new people, developing those characters, and getting us to the point where like, oh man, I can't wait to see when Finn Balor and Walter go at it. Like, you know what I mean? Like it's just like they know how to really quickly build that stuff. Now, I mean, that specific point when I first got into NXT, when it was like Bayley and Sasha Banks were like the hottest thing, like that all the way up to like Andrade, like it was such a good I was like, how did they lose 50% of their roster and in what felt like a month and a half had a better show than when they had their best roster? Like it's incredible.
They lose Joe, Finn, and Owens, and then all of a sudden you get Cole, Andrade, and Gargano.
Yeah.
Like,
and I didn't
what?
And as me, like, that's the other thing is like, as me, someone who didn't really pay attention to the indies that much, like, unless it was someone who came from like the Philly area directly,
right.
I didn't really know them, but man, they got me to care about Ciampa and Gargano so quickly and so invested in those feuds. And like, talk about a feud that you very easily could have like WWE to death, the way that like you see the same two people have a match over and over and over again that you hate it. Like I will never get tired of Ciampa and Gargano matches.
No,
like,
absolutely not.
Always find a new way to build to it. It's never like, oh, I just want to get my revenge for you beating me the last time. It's like they do the one, and then it's like 6 months of stewing and build and like, and they just every time I was like, well, they somehow topped what I thought was an untoppable match. Like, oh my god, so good. And like,
it really is.
And the seeds were put there. The craziest thing is that the seeds were put there in the the first what the heck was it? The cruiserweight.
Cruiserweight Classic.
Yeah.
Yes.
I was like, that cruiserweight match is amazing.
Oh yeah.
Like,
Oh yeah. I love the Cruiserweight Classic.
But it was such good storytelling because they were tag partners.
Yeah.
So you're literally telling the story of two guys who don't want to hurt each other. And it's like,
then 2 years later, someone's gonna die.
Yeah, they're gonna kill. Oh my god. Like, just, it's all so good. And like, even like, I watched the most recent takeover, and it was basically me watching it blind, not knowing any of these characters. And even then, just so, I mean, I'm sure AW will get there, but like, you cannot touch the WWF video package. They have got the greatest video team on the planet for taking even the dumbest feuds and making a video where you suddenly care. They just know the right song, the right camera angle, and the right like way to put voiceover to make every story matter. It's insane. But yeah, I mean, I could talk wrestling all day, but I'm also out of the loop on wrestling, so it makes it difficult. It's just,
I mean,
it's fun.
I pride myself in trying to have a finger on the pulse of wrestling. I can't say that I'm any kind of expert. I don't know everything, but
I stay up to date because of Cultaholic. Those are like the guys.
Love Cultaholic, love What Culture.
What Culture?
Yeah, I mean, What Culture?
Unknown.
I never got into the new breed of What Culture hosts. I like Simon a lot.
They have grown on me because I was definitely Cultaholic diehard when they left, and then all the new people showed up. I'm like, yeah. And now I love What Culture.
Yeah, see, I stick with I just, after a while, I was like, I'll give them a shot, and I gave it like 6 months. I'm like, you know what? Every time that I see two videos posted, one's from Cultaholic and one's from What Culture, I'm always clicking that Cultaholic one first. So I'm like, you know what? I feel like that's telling me what I need to know.
What's funny about that is I don't go to What Culture for that many wrestling videos.
See, I
go to What Culture for all the other stuff, for all the movies, for all the video game content.
That's
like,
fine.
I'm always getting the choose your own adventure. I get those all the time.
I liked I thought What Culture music was really good. I enjoyed what they were doing with the What Culture music. I don't know if they're still doing it. It hasn't popped up in my YouTube recommends in a really long time. But
check that out.
But like, I think that there's know what it is? It's that you've got Ross and Pacitti and you've got Jack. And then, I mean, adding Tom, I thought Tom was like the most incredible addition to that squad. But you have these four dudes where you can just feel the friendship and love and adoration of each other oozing out. And I think that that's been really comforting, is that this whole pandemic, I can't watch wrestling with my friends like I always do. So like, listening to friends talk about wrestling has been a very like nice replacement for it.
Which is kind of what for lack of a better term, that's kind of what I've been doing with the podcast. You know, I started this whole deal. I don't know if I ever brought this up on one of the other episodes, but I started this whole deal because as a wrestler, I wrestled for a YouTube show.
Yeah.
And on that YouTube show, I got, not trying to brag here, but I got like 8,000 follows on Twitter. And I was like, and then a friend of mine named Ben Banks, he runs Leveling Up with Ben Banks, the podcast out of Norfolk. And he had me on years ago. And I was like, I want to do this. I want to have a fun conversation with my friends about whatever their interest was. Because he didn't even have me on about wrestling. He had me on about Star Wars.
Nice.
Yeah. Because I don't think I have, no crap. I don't have any Star Wars stuff in here, but I love Star Wars. Absolutely cherish it. So he had me on to talk about Star Wars. So then I'm like, what if I did a podcast where I brought in my buddies about their go-to subject, not just about wrestling. So like we had a guy, his name is Mad Max Morrison. He is a wrestling friend of mine. We trained at the same school, just like in NXT, separate classes, where I was part of like the Sami Zayn Cesaro NXT class.
Okay, yeah.
He was part of like the Drew McIntyre Andrade class.
Okay.
You know, that's about how much difference there was between us being there, but it was the same place. And we met, we became friends, and then I brought him on to the show to talk because not only is he a wrestler, but he's also an actor and has appeared in a handful of like indie horror movies.
Okay.
And as a wrestler, of course, you know, he always plays the big broody killer. So I asked him about that, and we talked about horror movies. So I wanted to use, use my powers for good, and kind of use my connection, my following to build up all my other friends, and build their following, and build whatever their project is. Like, great example, some of our episodes that we record, because we have a D&D like spin-off show.
Yeah.
And our DM, the Dungeon Master, is my brother, who is a voice actor. And so I use him as the DM just to show off all these character voices that he has.
I think that's a cool thing because like for one of the shows that we do, so Horror Movie Night, we don't really even do that many guests anymore because our schedules are wild as is. So we kind of bank episodes. So like at the time that we're recording this, everything until the summer has already been recorded and edited. Like we'll do like, hey, this weekend we're going to record 4 episodes and we'll just like knock out 4 episodes. But with stuff like One Hit Thunder, where I do get to have guests, it's fun because I'm able to bring in these pretty big name musicians that will hop on and talk to us about their favorite one hit wonder. And that's been building up our numbers. And that show is just like, when I look at our listeners, it's just a perfect straight line up. Like the show just keeps going up. But what's great about it is using that to be like, in between having like the lead singer of Less Than Jake and the bassist from Wheatus, I can have my friend who's like a local band in Philly is like the episode in between there, and we can use one of their songs as the closing music. And it's like, it's a great way to subtly give friends of mine that extra push, because I know for a fact that I can tell them, hey, at least a couple hundred to 1,000 people are going to listen to your song.
Absolutely.
Because those are like you're able to look at those numbers and be like, this is going to help you. I'm not going to say that 1,000 people are going to listen to this episode and 1,000 people are going to go buy your record on Bandcamp, but you might get 4 or 5 new diehard fans just from that episode. And then I'm sure, as you've been learning with a podcast, that back catalog at a certain point, that becomes like 75% of what people listen to every week. You know what I mean? Like you look at the numbers, like I'll look at like episode breakdowns, and I'm just going to talk with hypothetical numbers. These aren't actual numbers, but like if I looked at like an episode of Horror Movie Night, and let's say that we had 2,000 listens that particular week, but I look at the episode we dropped that week and we only had 400 listens on that episode, then that means the other 1,600 listens are people going back to previous episodes and checking out what like the other stuff was. And I know that that's the case because I'm getting the emails from listeners that are like, hey, I just started the show and I heard you say this on episode 32. I'm like, episode 32? We're about to drop episode 300. Like I can't believe you're still hanging out in the double digits with us.
That's kind of how it's been with us, because just recently, like not even a month ago, I finally figured out a way to get us on Spotify. Yeah. And because that's what everyone said for the longest time.
Spotify numbers are no joke, dude.
It's been great, because the hard part about YouTube is that it's so much harder to watch, because D&D sessions, especially because that's like our go-to, at least for weekly numbers. I can't always guarantee an interview on a Friday, but I can always guarantee that we're recording a D&D session on Tuesdays. Yeah. So with that, like, it's hard to sit through a 3-hour YouTube video, but it's really easy. And I've heard this from friends, from coworkers, to put on Spotify in the background and listen to an episode. So now I'm getting friends texting me, hey, I just listened to episode 10. Yeah. We're in episode 23. We're about to start season 2. And my friends are just now like grabbing on and listening. and it's fantastic.
Strap in, dude. It's and I'll tell this to anybody: if you have an idea, you want to do a podcast, just do it. And
Oh yeah,
you know,
absolutely, go for it.
if you want someone to help out, I know a great company called WeKnowPodcasting.com. You can go and check us out. We can help you out with a bunch of stuff. But like the weirdest moment for me was I started podcasting in, I want to say 2005, 2006.
Okay.
And the horror movie night is the 9th attempt at podcasting for me. I would do
Really?
a show. We'd get maybe 10 episodes in. I'd be like, this doesn't feel right. This kind of sucks. And I would keep getting rid of it, and I would delete the show and I would start over and I would do all types of different stuff. And like the one thing that I noticed, since the advice that I give everybody is like, for 8 podcasts, I was doing my best Howard Stern impersonation. I wasn't actually being Matt Kelly. And like, as soon as you like drop that facade and are as open and honest about yourself as you can be, that's what's going to draw people in. But like, I didn't feel like we made it. Like, I saw that our numbers were doing really, really well. And I saw that like we were in like the top 2% of all of the podcast listening audience in the world. And like, I saw that we had all these metrics that said, wow, this show's doing really well for 3 nobodies talking about horror and shitty movies. But like, none of it felt real until 2 years ago. I was at San Diego Comic-Con at the Geekscape booth, and we had John Morrison signing at our table.
Oh,
And
Nice.
this was when he was on Lucha Underground. So he had
Johnny
the cross
Mundo.
sunglasses. Yeah.
That's
He was
awesome.
He was there as Johnny Mundo, and he's signing autographs. And I shit you not, I have never felt cooler than this moment, because at this point I was like all in on wrestling. So I knew
Right.
who he was. And he was like super chill, was like hanging out and chatting with me. Paul couldn't make it that year. So he was like, hey, I'm going to send my friend Johnny. So Johnny's there signing, and Johnny and I are just shooting the shit, and we're making each other laugh. And I start laughing, and this guy stops dead in his tracks, and he goes, oh shit, I didn't know you were going to be here. And Johnny Mundo's like, yeah, no, I did a surprise signing. He's like, no, not you. That's Matt from Horror Movie Night. I recognize his laugh.
Oh my god.
He's like,
Okay.
That's awesome.
and he came up and he gave me a big hug. He's like, can you get a picture with me and my kid? And he like took a selfie of him with his
Oh
kid.
my gosh, that's amazing.
And I was just like, this
That's
is
fantastic.
unreal. Like, I
That's
just
fantastic.
outshined
I
a professional
legit have a
wrestler.
story
That's
just like this.
fantastic.
Just like this. Okay, so two years ago, I'm at Lexington Comic-Con in Kentucky.
Yeah.
Nope, never mind. I thought that was an email I've been waiting for. I'm sorry. But I was at Lexington Comic-Con in Kentucky. And I've been part of the YouTube, this is before the pandemic, before I got hurt. So I was like right in the heat of going every week to this YouTube show called GTS that I was on.
Okay. Yeah.
And I was on pretty constantly. And I go to meet Edge and Christian. And I got a photo up with Edge and Christian. And I was like this little kid marking out because I got to meet, 2 of the biggest tag team wrestlers ever. Me and my brother were big cheesy grins. We're getting our picture ready. And as we're walking away from the photo booth, this little kid stops me and like pokes me. I turn around and it's this kid dressed as Kane. He's about up to my waist. He goes, "You're Jay Kirby from GTS, aren't you?" I got recognized at a convention 50 feet away from Edge and Christian. I
That's
was like,
amazing. It's
what is going on?
But it's like legitimately, and it's funny because it's like, do I have moments like that all the time? Absolutely not. Like at the most is like, I'll go to horror conventions that I've been to a million times and people are like, hey, it's Matt. Like, but it's at that point.
People recognize me at wrestling shows.
Yeah.
But
but like out in the wild, that was like the craziest thing I've ever experienced.
Oh yeah.
And then like what I started doing was in the last maybe 2 or 3 years, the pandemic really kind of messed this up, but I had a goal that I wanted to see all 50 states. I was
That's
like,
awesome.
I want to drive to all 50 states. I want to travel there. I just want to see them. Because I really never left Pennsylvania that much. Like the most I did was like go to Jersey, go to Delaware. You know what I mean? Like you go to like the surrounding areas. So I made a point to like travel to these different spots. And at this point, like the horror movie night Facebook group had 2,000 people in it. And it's
Nice.
anybody who's in that group, it's a very active group. Like there are people posting all the time. So I would literally just be like, hey, I'm going to be in Salt Lake City for the weekend. Anybody live out here? And like people would message me and be like, hey, I'm going to be out in I live in Salt Lake City. And I'll just be like, all right, let's grab dinner. And we would just like meet up with these people and hang out and grab dinner. And like, it made it even cooler because then I was starting to base my trips on like, you know, like I'd see someone posting a whole bunch and I'd be like, this guy seems really cool. Where does he live? And I would like creep on the profile page and be like, oh, they live like, I haven't been in that state yet. And then I'd be like, all right, well, I'm going to make it a point to like go to Wyoming and message Joe and be like, Joe, I'm going to be in Wyoming. Like we should hang out. But like it's cool having that, building that community. It's great things. And it opens so many doors. We were talking before we even hit record, like if I could sit down and like tell 16-year-old Matt that like, listen, when you're done high school, you're going to have a very complicated experience throughout your entire 20s and it's going to suck. But then when you turn 30, you're going to be friends with the Monster Squad. You're going to be friends with guys from your favorite punk bands. You're going to be in a documentary that's on Amazon Prime right now. Like all of those things are going to happen to you. And I would have been like, no, that's impossible. Why would that ever happen? But like podcasting opened so many doors. And there's a quote that I think about every day. And I heard it on an episode of Geekscape. And I'm sure this isn't like an original thought, but it was the first time I heard someone say it, which is success is the combination of work, of luck and practice. And his point was like bands that make it on their first album have a really hard time maintaining that success.
Right.
But a band who's put out 4 albums and then all of a sudden make it on their 5th album, people have a whole back catalog to discover, to keep them invested, to keep them interested. So it's like, it's the same thing with like, if you sell your first ever script that you wrote in LA, now there's a ton of pressure for that second script versus if you've been grinding and you just write a script every year and no one's interested in these scripts, but then all of a sudden one script is a massive success and they say, what do you got? What else do you got? And you're like, well, luckily for you, I've got 12 different scripts to show you. Like, that's how you go from a one-hit wonder or like a 15 minutes of fame into like a full-blown career. And that's kind of just been my whole guiding mantra is like, I'm doing this, I'm working hard. And I think it's the combination of working hard and just being like a genuinely good person. And like, and I don't say that to like pat myself on the back, but like the reality is like I'll go to a San Diego Comic-Con, I'll go to a film festival, I am in a documentary about the Monster Squad movie because the guys at Monster Squad were signing at Philadelphia Wizard World.
Nice.
And I said, I have a podcast and we talked about Monster Squad for our 100th episode. I'd love for you.
Yes, I remember that.
Yeah, and I gave him a link to the episode, and then I also said I also have a table at San Diego Comic-Con. If you need a table, we're happy to have you. And they gave me their email for their manager, and then they became friends because they started coming to San Diego every single year and signing at the booth. And you know, at the end of the day, they just said, "Hey, Matt, like." We know you're a big fan. We know that you're a nice guy. We know that you've got this podcast. Would you drive down to Virginia to do an interview for the podcast? And I was like, absolutely. I will take a day off from work to drive down there and be in a documentary about a movie that has meant so much to me since I was 5. You know what I mean? Like it was, and like, it's so funny because my friend's like, do you think that, are you bummed that you're only in it for like 5 seconds? I'm like, of course not. Like, the fact that I'm in it at all is insane.
Right?
Like, yeah.
But like, I got to literally hang out with the stars of a movie that changed my life when I was a kid, made me feel like I wasn't alone. And those dudes' numbers are in my cell phone. And I can just text them randomly and be like, hey, we're doing a podcast episode on blah, 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 blah. Do you want to come on? And they're like, yeah, sure. I'm free. Let's do it. Like that doesn't make sense to me still. Like, and that wouldn't have happened without podcasting. But I also think that like, it's not enough to have a podcast. If you have a podcast and you're a piece of shit, like when the interview's done, versus like, when I go to like Fantastic Fest in Texas and I do all of these interviews, I'm not saying I walk away from every single interview and all of a sudden I've got a bunch of new friends, but there's a good amount of people that I sat in a room and talked to for 20 minutes. And then they saw me at the festival like a day or two later and were like, hey, do you want to sit together for this next movie? Just because they enjoyed the 20-minute conversation and wanted to keep talking. And then all of a sudden we're exchanging Instagram handles. And all of a sudden we're like,
Right.
Awesome.
hey, I've got this thing to promote. Okay, cool. Let me get you on this show to promote it. Like, you know what I mean? Like you build that relationship with those people, but like that doesn't happen to every single person that has a podcast. It happens to the people who are hungry for it and genuine for it. And like, I've heard bad interviews at those. I don't know who this person is, so I really don't mind sharing the story. But the last year that they had Fantastic Fest before the world shut down, they were screening a documentary called Scream Queen: My Nightmare on Elm Street, and it was all about
That's on Shudder right now. Actually.
It's an amazing documentary. And they were doing the interviews at a hotel room instead of at the movie theater. So I had to drive to downtown Austin and, you know, pay for parking, whatever.
Right.
And they didn't have an enclosed room. It was just in this like hallway, basically. So where I was sitting, I could hear the interview happening before me. And the people that you were interviewing Mark Patton, who was the star of Nightmare on Elm Street
2.
And then the two guys who did the documentary. And I was hearing a guy in front of me who exclusively talked to Mark Patton, never even addressed the two directors that were standing there. And I wouldn't even say he interviewed as much as he talked at Mark Patton about his theories of Freddy Krueger. And I was just like, that's not how you do it. That's not how you do it. So like, I was excited to be the follow-up because it's like one of those things where like when you watch a comedian bomb and you're the next one up to the mic, you're like, well,
can't get any worse.
Job just got a little bit easier. But I made sure to like, and I'm sure Britt's probably heard the interview because it did go out on the Horror Movie Night feed when it happened. But like, I'm juggling that conversation between all three guests to make sure that everyone's getting equal speaking time. But I who had watched the documentary and saw how much this movie was really affecting Mark's mental health, really tried to stray away from talking about anything related to Freddy Krueger and talking about him as a person and his growth and like how inspiring I found the documentary and talking about like, yo, when this scene happened, I started to cry. Opening up, and he gave me a hug when the interview was over.
Wow.
Like Mark Patton gave me a big hug and was like, you better come to the after party tomorrow night. Like, and it's like,
that's fantastic.
But I mean, like, I watched the guy before me. He didn't get that hug. He didn't get that comment. Like, you have to know what you're doing and people will notice. And I mean, just heaping compliments. You two are fantastic at this. You're good at keeping the conversation going. You're good at letting the guests talk. You're very good at this. So like, keep striving at it. Cause I do think that this is what has the potential. Stuff like this has the potential to grow. I've done a bunch of speaking at different colleges lately about podcasting.
Oh.
And I spoke recently at UCLA and they asked me, what if my podcast idea is stupid? And my response is that I currently do a podcast about Christmas that takes place all year round, every single week. And our numbers in March are as good as our numbers were in December. So like, if my all year round Christmas podcast idea can work, then any stupid idea can work as long as there's sincerity behind it. So
Absolutely.
like, that's my, I mean, if people are listening for any podcasting
You
advice,
have a Christmas podcast?
I do. Christmas 365. It's me and my friend Dylan. We talk about different elements of Christmas. We'll talk about Christmas specials. We recorded an episode recently where it was just about the foods that we eat at Christmas time, celebrating our favorite Christmas foods.
Sold me.
Yeah, we're trying
definitely
to we want to do an episode pretty soon. We're waiting until I just bought a house and I'm working on building a studio inside. Oh, thank you. I'm working on building a studio inside the house so I can do live streaming whenever. So we want to do a live streaming episode with our friend Tom. Tom has a podcast, and I feel like a terrible friend because I'm blanking on the name of it, but it's basically a podcast all about TGIF in the 90s, like discussing like those shows. but he wants to sit with
Ooh.
us and talk exclusively about 90s Christmas commercials.
Oh my
Oh
god.
gosh.
So I was like, well, we have to do
Yes.
this because my co-host Dylan is like 10 years younger than me. So like he barely remembers any of this stuff. So what we want to do is like get all of those commercials and do like almost a live reaction of him watching these
Yes.
commercials.
I need this
You know
episode.
what I mean? But it's like stuff like that is like, that's so fun. It's so goofy. Like we did an episode where we debated what the difference is between a Christmas carol and a Christmas song. And it was like an hour and a
Ooh.
half long deep dive conversation. But like,
I
it's
dig
Okay.
it.
all fun
Okay.
stuff like that.
But since we're on the Christmas topic, I have to ask the eternal question that will
Oh,
cause
son
a
of a
civil
bitch.
war on this podcast one day. Die Hard. Christmas movie or not?
So here's the thing. I don't think it's a Christmas movie.
Okay.
And here's the reason why. Here's the reason why. For me, yes, it's a movie that takes place at Christmas time, and
Okay.
like I have no problem with people wanting to watch it at
Mhm.
Christmas time. Totally makes sense. But I think that if you replaced Christmas with 4th of July or literally any other holiday where an office would be closed, none
Mhm.
of the plot would be overly affected by that change.
Okay.
And that's the only reason why.
That is the fairest defense anyone's brought to me. Everyone always just gets mad. Is like, no, you're stupid. It's not a Christmas movie.
No, so for
That's
me, my
logic. Right
yeah,
there.
to me,
I
my
love it.
definition is like if you removed the Christmas element from the movie, how badly does it affect the entire plot line?
Right.
And I just don't think that it would affect it that much. Like you'd have to make changes. You couldn't just like make the exact same movie.
Right.
But I would say that about 90% of that movie would not be changed at all, removing the Christmas element from it.
Okay, that's fair. That's a
versus
fair
like
assumption.
versus something like a movie that I think doesn't get enough credit as a Christmas action movie, something like Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, where like
Okay.
where like the whole conceit of that movie, that plot starts off by him trying to steal the biggest toy available in a toy store for Christmas. Like that, if you take the Christmas out of it, like you could still kind of do it as just like, oh, he's a thief.
Right.
But like the whole point is like, no, it's this rare toy that he's trying to get for Christmas time. So it like adds that element of Christmasness to it. But I mean, I don't know. I'm a black and white classic movie when it comes to Christmas. So I'll take my It's a Wonderful Life or Miracle on 34th Street any day. So
I mean, I can watch A Christmas Story until I pass out. Love Christmas movies.
I enjoy A Christmas Story, but it's one of those movies that I didn't realize until I finally bought the DVD and watched it that I had never watched it. I had seen the whole movie
through.
Yeah, I'd seen every single scene of the movie.
Same thing.
But you always catch it in spots.
For 20 years, I hadn't
thought that
watched it from start to finish.
I literally thought the scene with them eating at the Chinese restaurant was like the middle of the movie for years.
Right.
It's like the last scene.
Yes.
I had no clue because I only would like sporadically walk into rooms when it was on. That movie actually scared me a lot as a kid.
Okay.
I would get easily scared by things.
Wait, what movie was it?
Christmas
I'm so
Story.
Sorry, what movie? Like, okay, I'm sorry. The internet was breaking up on my end. So, Christmas Story. Really?
It was the kid with the tongue stuck to the pole, like that.
Yeah.
Like little stuff like that would freak me out as a kid, and I was just like, I can't do it. One of the stories that I think I've told this on Horror Movie Night, but I'm sure I've told it on something. Is I was afraid to watch Star Wars as a kid. And the reasoning is really, really dumb.
Okay.
So I was at my cousin's house as a little kid. This was, I want to say 1988. So I was literally like 3 or 4 years old.
Okay.
I was hanging out in the basement with my cousin, probably almost definitely playing with his wrestling toys. And I came upstairs and all of the adults were watching Spaceballs because it was like the new movie on VHS.
Yes.
Right.
Okay.
So I saw Rick Moranis and I saw Rick Moranis in the dark helmet suit. And then the very next scene was the Alien parody in that movie.
Oh.
And I saw the alien burst out of his chest. Yeah. I saw the alien burst out of this guy's chest and it freaked me out. And I ran back downstairs and just hung out in the basement until it was time to go home. So flash forward to a year later, my dad wants to show me one of his favorite movies, Star Wars, and he puts it on and I see Darth Vader walk in.
You see the helmet.
And I see the helmet. I'm like,
Yes.
oh no. And I literally was like, I don't like this movie. And he had to like sit me down. And was like, no. This isn't that movie. I promise you're
my
going to be
gosh.
fine.
Okay.
Well, yeah, Matt. Okay, since Matt shared his story, Jay.
So I
your
have a
turn.
story about a movie in hindsight that probably shouldn't have scared me, but did.
All right.
Granted, it is in the horror genre, so I'm sticking with the theme here.
All right.
For the longest time, I was terrified of Scream. And I
So-
didn't realize until I was older that it was basically a meta comedy.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Scream was the
Because-
movie that got me into horror movies actually as a kid. So
What
it-
happened?
yeah,
was
what was the part that did it for you?
It wasn't even the movie. It was freaking Ghostface.
Oh,
okay?
the Ghostface mask.
I was, jeez, I don't know,
Yep, the killer.
7 or 8. Math isn't my strong suit, and I
That's fine.
apologize.
It's a great movie.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
like a masterpiece.
I
of cinema.
rewatched it for Halloween, and I was like, this movie's amazing.
It's so brilliant.
But
And everyone's just like everyone is doing the best acting job they've ever
yeah.
done in their entire
Mhm.
life.
absolutely,
Like Skeet Ulrich has never been more seductive. Matthew Lillard has never been more unhinged, and Jamie
Oh,
Kennedy has
oh, yeah.
never been funnier. Like it's
oh yeah.
Oh,
it's like
Oh,
that
yeah.
perfect combination of all of them.
So I'm like 8 or 9, and my like little league soccer team has a Halloween party. So all the kids are bundled up in this one room watching. I want to say it was Disney's Sleepy Hollow.
Okay.
So lights
The
are
cartoon,
out,
right?
movies,
Not-
yes, the cartoon.
Okay. Which is
Movies
also
on,
an extremely unsettling cartoon.
right. Hindsight's 2020 on that one. So we're all like gripped on this movie, and then we hear a knock on the window, and we all like in unison get up, look out the window, and there's the kid's older brother and his friends dressed as Ghostface
Nah,
in
see,
the
that's
window,
fucked up.
like straight out of a
That's mean.
scary movie.
Mean.
And
So-
I was
so great.
legit traumatized for most of my life after that part. Like I
It-
could not sleep with the window like open or the blinds open because I was worried of seeing something in the window.
So Legend of Sleepy Hollow, the cartoon, or I guess it's The Adventures of Ichabod Crane, I think is the
Yeah.
actual
Yeah.
official title. This year for Halloween, I was like, I've started to make it more of a tradition for me because I watch horror movies all year round. That
Right.
Halloween time, I want to dedicate more to like classic black and white films and stuff that I've kind of put off.
Yes.
So this year for Halloween, I was like, I don't know if we're going to have any trick-or-treaters because it's a COVID Halloween,
Mhm.
but let me put on stuff that would be acceptable for kids if they were to come in.
Mhm.
So I put on that because I used to produce, we don't do it anymore, but I used to do a Disney podcast. So while we were doing this Disney podcast, I collected every Disney release on DVD so that we had just them as a reference point. Back catalogs are still out there. Check it out. It's still one of my favorite shows I ever did. Disneydo. It's my 2 coworkers, Andrew and Brooke. They get drunk and watch and talk about Disney.
my
It's-
That
God.
sounds
as far
like
as I-
fun.
as far as I know, is the first ever explicit Disney podcast. But
Yeah, we try to do
Um,
that, but YouTube.
Yeah,
yeah, Disney does not mess around with that stuff. We couldn't
No,
get on
they
most of the
didn't.
apps, so that's why we like cut it. But
Mm.
I was watching that, and I'll tell you what, even in my 30s, in pitch black, alone in a house, the scene where Ichabod Crane is crossing, like
Not
trying
covered
to,
bridge.
yeah, it's creepy.
Yeah.
But
Mhm.
my experience with Scream as like the gateway, that was like my gateway into horror movies, was
Mhm.
as a kid, I liked Star Wars. I liked Indiana Jones.
Mhm.
I loved Back to the Future. Back to the
Yes.
Future was my trilogy. I will still fight that it is the best trilogy of films. But because of that, I loved Michael J. Fox. So if Michael J. Fox was in a movie or a TV show, I watched so much Spin City. I can't tell you a single plot of a single episode, but Michael J. Fox was on it, so I was watching it. And I was terrified of horror movies. I would
Mhm.
the most I would do was like walk down the aisle at the Blockbuster and like look at the
Mhm.
boxes, but I
Oh,
couldn't
yep.
build
Yep.
up the courage to rent anything.
Right.
But
Right there
Oh,
with you.
man.
Right
all
there
of a
with you.
sudden on pay-per-view, they're advertising this movie where it's Michael J. Fox and a bunch of ghosts. And it was a movie called The Frighteners. And I was like,
Ooh.
and I literally thought to myself, Michael J. Fox wouldn't hurt me. So So I was like, I'm going to build up the courage. I'm going to watch this horror movie starring Michael J. Fox. And it's a comedy. Like it's Peter Jackson. It's after Dead Alive, but before Lord of the Rings.
Okay.
It's actually a brilliant movie. The concept is that Michael J. Fox can see ghosts and he can communicate with ghosts. So he hires a bunch of ghosts to haunt houses so that he can get paid money to exercise the house.
That's genius.
Oh my God.
But what happens
That's
is
brilliant.
a rogue ghost starts going around killing the people whose houses he exercises to frame him. So he has to like clear his name that he's not a murderer. It's a really good movie. It's really well done. It's funny. Jake Busey is in it. The dude from Full Metal Jacket plays the ghost who runs the graveyard like a Marines base. R. Lee Emery. He just recently died. It's something like that.
All my Marine friends are gonna be mad at me. I'll remember it in a second. I promise.
But it's a great movie. So I watched it. I loved it. I made a VHS copy by connecting a VCR to a VCR the way that we did back in the 90s when we wanted a copy of a movie. We rent it from Blockbuster. And I took it to my cousin's house and I was like, you got to watch this movie. This movie's great. And he watched it and he's like, that movie was really good. And he's like, I think you can handle Scream. Like this is as gory and scary as Scream. So he sat me down and like my cousin was kind of a dick as a kid. But one of the nicest things he ever did for me was he was like, there's one scene that might be intense. I want to tell you to close your eyes when it happens. So we're watching the movie and it's the part where they're about to cut open Drew Barrymore's boyfriend's stomach when he's tied to the chair.
Okay. Yeah.
So he's like, all right, close your eyes. So I close my eyes, but he's like, all right, you're cool to open them. I watched the rest of the movie. And the movie's over and he's like, what did you think? And I said, show me what I closed my eyes during. And I made him rewind the movie just to show me that scene. And I was like, I want to watch every horror movie that has ever been at this point. Like
that was your gateway drug.
It was, and it was bad, dude. I jokingly, but probably actually seriously put a mom and pop's video store out of business by my house. There was this place called West Coast Video.
Okay.
And so this is going to sound weird to kids who didn't grow up in the video store days, but I feel like all three of us are going to understand what I'm talking about.
Yes.
You had the different types of tapes, right? You had the new releases and then you had the older releases, right? And the new releases you got for maybe 2 days, 3 days, if you picked it correctly.
3 days max.
Yeah. But the older videos you would get for like 5 to 7 days.
You could keep those things forever.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So West Coast Video had a rule that if you rented a 5 to 7 day rental and you returned it the very next day, you got a free rental, which is a pretty cool deal, right? So I was 13 and I rented 3 movies, went home, watched all 3 movies, brought them back the next day, got my free rentals, and I watched those 3 movies and brought them the next day. And that's when I discovered that there was a glitch that the free movies could still roll over into free movies. So for an entire summer, I rented out almost the entire horror section at this store for like the $10 it cost me to rent the 3 initial movies. And then one day I rode my bike to drop off the videos and it was just an out of business sign on the door.
Oh my God.
I was like, oh no.
Oh man.
Oh my gosh.
Dang.
So this day, that 20 years later, I still think I may have put West Coast Video out of business. But someone pointed out, they're like, you didn't help the cause, but if a 13-year-old could crack that code, there were definitely other people who cracked that code and were exploiting it. But yeah, I mean, I do miss those days. I was thinking about, you know how you get on like those weird like YouTube kicks where like all of a sudden you're just like there was like 1 month where I was like, I'm gonna watch every Todd in the Shadows video. Like you just like get into these weird things where you're gonna watch anything that the internet has. I've been on a kick of watching every Beavis and Butthead music video commentary because like people have just uploaded these like 90-second clips of them talking over the music videos. I have not realized how much I miss like an MTV that was just playing music videos all day long. watching these like weird artistic like 90s music videos when like so much attention to detail in the music videos.
Oh yeah.
So much like really trying to tell a story. Like it was like a true,
Right.
it was a legitimately amazing art form for like 15
yeah.
years. Like you, especially like I said, starting in the 90s specifically, there was some in the 80s, but like most of the 80s, it's like, hey, here's them playing like a live concert. Oh, look, Courtney
Right.
Cox is in the audience. She's dancing. But
Right.
like you get into like that grunge era where it's like an Alice in Chains video of a bunch of like
Yes.
claymation puppets like
And it's-
attacking a dead
Oh.
body. And you're just like, what is happening? Like,
Celebrity deathmatch.
Absolutely.
dude, oh my God, Celebrity Death. Do you remember?
Oh,
I mean, this ties
love
back into
that
wrestling
show.
too, but do you remember when TV stations did like rival halftime show content? So like WWE did like the empty arena match.
I actually do remember that, like, kind of faintly, but I still remember it.
The first one that I
Yep.
distinctly remember was Celebrity Deathmatch during the Super Bowl halftime show. Just did Merlin Manson versus Hanson, and it was
Yes.
just the
that
15 minutes short. And I was like, this
Huh.
is incredible.
wow.
It was awesome.
I miss
Oh.
that. Now like the halftime show is like this untouchable spectacle. So like no one is trying to go up against it anymore. But like
No.
more channels need to lean into that. They need to be like, yo, we
What
are the
I-
second this starts, flip to our channel and watch this.
What I find
Absolutely.
funny, not to go on a tirade here, but about the Super Bowl is they always seem like it's, and I've noticed it, especially since I've watched WWE. It seems like whoever's in the Super Bowl halftime show is always like 3 years past their popularity.
Yeah.
Almost like Vince McMahon is booking, you know, it's like, who's the hip artist with the kids nowadays? I don't know. That guy over there. All right, get him.
Yeah.
And
I-
not
I'm-
dissing on like The Weeknd, but like
Yeah.
Maroon
Weeknd-
5.
The Maroon 5 was
What
a
was
rough
it? 2
one.
years ago?
Coldplay was one
Yeah.
that was weird.
Yeah.
Like no, I do get what I will say in defense of that is that
Mhm.
you're getting an artist that does have a large enough hits catalog that they can do a good medley of like
Right.
songs that I was actually, as someone who's like
Hey,
at
you
most
found out.
a lukewarm Weekend fan, like
Mhm.
I have the album with I Can't Feel My Face,
right.
and like I've enjoyed the songs I've heard by
Do you
The
have to go
Weekend.
outside?
But I
Yeah.
was shocked by how many Weekend songs I actually knew during that. So
Right.
Right.
like he was playing songs and I'm like, oh, that's right. He was on this song.
Right, right.
Like like, so that's always fun. But yeah, I'm the guy who's been campaigning for like 15 years that Weird Al needs to play the Super Bowl halftime show. That's
That
the
would be
halftime show
awesome.
we
I-
deserve.
I'm about 10 years behind. I've been campaigning for 5 years that we need Metallica.
Metallica would be good. I think honestly, if you want one that would like appease pretty much everybody of any
Mhm.
generation, bring out the Foo Fighters, honestly.
Yes.
Yes.
Like they've got
Foo
hits for
Fighters are
days.
Fantastic.
They-
Who
yeah.
doesn't like Foo Fighters?
I was gonna say it's hard to not like that band. They've got countless hits, and like literally anyone from like little kids all the way up to like my
Mhm.
parents know and love Foo Fighter songs. Like it's
Oh,
like
yeah.
I get that
Yep.
you're like trying to cast a wide net. You're trying. They always say like the halftime show in theory is literally for like the kids and the women, as sexist as that sounds. Like
Yeah.
that's the demographic they're going for.
I have a
Who-
fun story about that. when
Yeah.
you're done.
But it's like who are the people that probably aren't watching the Super Bowl for the football? That's who the halftime show is. Like I don't follow
Yep.
sports. So for me, like I'm watching for the commercials.
Right.
And
Mhm.
really what like the game changer for me, and this is with wrestling, this is with award shows, with everything,
Mhm.
Twitter. Like I'm watching so that I get what the tweets are
Right.
that are
right.
making
You
They're
understand
like,
what
what
they're
is everyone
referencing.
talking about?
yeah. Like once I got onto Twitter, I started watching every award show known to man.
So what's funny is with Twitter, because I have a Twitter for the show and I have a Twitter for myself, like I see everything that goes on, and then I see Facebook that's going on, and I understand like meme culture and whatever big event is going on YouTube that everyone's talking about. So then what's funny is a week and a half later, my mother, who is not connected to any of this, will text me, what is going on with, so like she texts me, what is everyone talking about GameStop for? I was like, well,
Well,
boy, do I have a fun story to tell you.
well, and that's like I mean, I guess we're all around that age point where we're like really fighting to not be old.
Right.
So like there, I will have those moments where I'll see someone
right.
post a thing and I'm like, I don't know what that word means, and I'll be damned if I'm not on top
Uh-huh.
of this. And then I'm like Googling, like, what does simp mean?
Yep.
Like, I'm just like,
I
I
had to
need
do
to know.
that.
Dude, abbreviations, I can't keep up with all of them. When I was a kid, there was like 6.
Right.
There was like
Exactly.
LOL, ASL, LMAFL.
BBL, be back
Yeah,
later.
like there was ones now it's like ones that's like 7 letters. I'm like, I don't fucking know what this is
Why?
an abbreviation of anymore.
It's too long.
Oh man.
Too long.
No, the best one, and I can wind out of this, is there was a meme about it, and it goes, me trying to not be old, and it's like, new word everyone's using. Me hating said word. Me ironically using word as a joke. Word becoming part of my daily vocabulary.
Yeah. No, I have a friend whose dog's name is Totes McGoats because we kept
Oh
saying it
my
jokingly,
God.
and then it just became the dog's name. But yeah, that's like
You're getting that.
the one that I finally actually, when I see the abbreviation, I now know what it is. I had to Google what does SMH stand for like 20 times
Yep.
before I was like shaking my head. Got it. Okay, it's shaking my head.
Yep.
Wait. Seriously, is it shaking my head? Because I thought it was smacking your head.
It's shake.
Yeah, it's shaking head.
I seriously thought.
Because the problem was I used to get that from my my brother all the time. So he would say SMH in text message. I was like, what is he doing?
I'd read it as a word, like it was like shmo.
Yeah. I'm like, what is he saying? He's trying to speak to me. I know it.
Yeah, I always thought it was like.
I mean, it probably could be the same smacking or shaking, but it's essentially like, wow, what a dumb thing. Like,
Right.
like that's how it's, and I got that
Mhm.
that's what it meant. Like when I'd see it, I was like, okay, this clearly means like what an idiot.
Right.
But
Yep.
like I need to know exactly what they're saying. I will be damned.
Right.
But like then
Mhm.
like then there's like stupid stuff that I feel like I should have absolutely like today. I like we all hear that like I was today years old when,
Yes.
but
Yep.
like I literally just today found out that Joe Jonas was the person that was singing Cake by the Ocean. I just thought that it was like for the longest time. I literally was like, I was like, okay, yeah, DNCA was just like another like Walk the Moon,
Right.
like this random band
Right.
from nowhere.
Another
Like,
one-hit wonder band.
yeah,
And then
I
you're
had
like,
no clue.
wait a minute.
Yeah, like someone I was
Mhm.
watching a video and they were talking about Joe Jonas's song Cake by the Ocean. I'm like, wait, what? like it literally, and then I'm listening to the song and I'm like, how did I not know? Like that's so clearly like Joe Jonas's voice
Oh.
singing this song, but like had no clue. Completely caught me off guard. But yeah, but you can hear me talk about other one-hit wonders on my podcast, One Hit Thunder, with
Woo!
Chris Fafios of the band Punchline. We've done a lot of great episodes. Had a very controversial one about Hanson. Turns out Hanson, not
Ooh,
such great guys.
Oh.
really?
Hanson made a lot of mistakes during the lockdown. We'll just say that.
Ooh.
Yeah,
Ooh.
they maybe played a bunch of in-person shows when their hospitals were at peak ICU levels.
Oh no.
Just a
Oh.
lot of stuff where you're like, come on, Hanson. Like you
Really?
have Umbop money to just stay at home and not do things like this. Like if unsigned bands can hold off for the year, I think you
Mhm.
can wait to play Umbop for some folks.
Right.
But
True.
but yeah, we've done, we've covered everything. We've covered songs as far back as the 50s with Hey Baby, I
Ooh.
Want to Know If You'll Be
If you'll
My
be
Girl.
my girl. Da,
Which,
da, da, da.
fun fact with that song, inspired the Beatles.
Really?
Really.
that
Okay.
that
Hmm.
inspired John Lennon to pick up harmonica because of the harmonica intro. And they
Okay.
actually were that guy's backing band when he played in England in the late 50s, early 60s.
Wow.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
I'm talking about. We are learning tonight.
The thing with One Hit Thunder that I've learned after doing we're getting close to 100 episodes, is that some of these one hit wonders are way more interesting than the bands that have been around forever. Like the stories
Mhm.
behind these bands, the things that they've been up to. So many of them became like the dude from Semisonic.
Mhm.
Like
Yes.
he's like got 6 Grammys for writing songs for other people. Like he
Awesome.
wrote that song "Game of Love" for Michelle Branch. That like a little bit of this. Like,
Okay.
With Carlos Santana.
yeah, he wrote. Or wait, hold on a second. I might be getting that mixed up. That may have been the guy from the New Radicals. The guy from the New Radicals and the guy from Semisonic both wrote like massive hits. Yeah, the guy from Semisonic wrote a bunch of Adele's songs, including "Hello" and "Rolling in the Deep" were written by
Man.
Semisonic.
I love Adele.
I mean, I don't trust a person who don't.
I can't. Okay, so this will be my last point, and then we'll wrap it up. With that being said about Adele, am I the only one who's disappointed that Zootopia didn't use Adele to play Gazelle?
I mean,
I feel like that would have been the greatest pun ever.
you know what? I agree with you, but at the same time, and I haven't rewatched it in a hot minute, but Zootopia is got to be pretty high up there on slept on Disney films, because that movie
super underrated.
Fantastic.
Super underrated.
I would also argue, when it comes to the Pixar ones, I am a strong defender that Brave does not get enough credit.
I love Brave. I
Brave
love it.
is really good.
Amazing. It's amazing. And like that's one of those ones that nobody talks about. Like it's
No.
during that kind of like rough patch. Like not
Mhm.
that Pixar ever, I don't think Pixar ever has had a bad, I mean, we ignore the Cars movies,
I
But
was about to
that's
say Cars.
that's its own
but like
loop.
like there's never been like a bad Pixar movie, but there was definitely like a lull in like the movies making the cultural impact.
Mhm.
And like Brave got caught up in like that Ratatouille type period where like
Yeah.
they weren't
Yeah.
hitting, but like now it's just, I mean, Coco, I don't know if there will be a
Oh
Pixar
my
movie I love as much as
God.
Coco ever again.
Oh,
Like
Coco
that-
was gorgeous.
That movie, and
So
then
good.
like literally my top two Pixar movies are two films that came out in the last like 5 years, because it's Coco and it's Onward. Onward
Onward
was
was so good.
was
Onward
like,
made me cry.
Goodness.
oh my god, Onward was like, if you have a brother and you like Dungeons and Dragons, do we have a movie for you? Because it's Onward.
No wonder I love that movie.
Oh my God.
Yeah,
dude,
there you
so
go, Jay.
when
Right up your
I-
alley.
When I watched Onward, I cried the entire movie.
Oh,
Because I thought that it was
right
a
at
movie-
the end, I thought they were gonna do the ending, and then they
Oh.
did. I'm like,
Yeah. I
Her-
cried because
hold it together.
I felt like I was watching a movie about me and my brother, because
Right.
like that is my
So-
dynamic with my brother, who's my co-host on Horror Movie Night.
uh-huh.
But the
Mr.
funny thing with that was was that I didn't want to say anything. I'm like, I don't want to tell him that this movie made me think of him, because he's
Right.
gonna make fun of me
Right.
and it's gonna taint his ability to watch the movie. So I think he even said it on the air, but I know that he texted me and was like, Jade and I are watching Onward and we've gotten 10 minutes into the movie. Jade's his wife. And Jade looked at me and goes, you realize this movie's about you and your brother, right?
Oh my god.
so
That would be something just based on listening to the show. Like that would be something
Oh my
that
goodness.
I would imagine Jade saying.
Yeah. Oh, she's got no filter. She's
I like her.
I like her. Now that's how I felt with Toy Story 3.
oh
'Cause
yeah.
that literally came out my senior year of high school. And
And you're just packing up your stuff. You're
Mhm.
getting away
yeah,
to leave.
he's
Oh
leaving
my God.
he's leaving for college. I had signed up for the military, so I was leaving home for the first time ever. And I'm just like,
Yeah.
why does this movie hurt?
Well, that's like,
Oh.
I don't think it's, I will never say that this is like a great Pixar movie. I actually
Mhm.
think that the quality of the movie is probably on the lower end, but I will forever argue that Toy Story 2 is the most important Pixar movie that was ever made,
Okay.
because that movie has the "When She Loved Me" sequence. And I
Yes.
feel like that was the moment. I feel like that was the turning point. I feel like that song was the moment where they were like, we can really go hard. We can go heavy.
Mhm.
Oh,
We
yeah.
can tell stories and we can change, like, because you look at it and it's like, up until that point, like all the movies leading up to that are fine. Like
Are
Yeah.
very
I
like
lo-
lighthearted and
Yeah.
happy.
I love Bugs Life. I could watch Bugs Life a million times,
Oh yeah.
but Bugs Life doesn't hit me on the emotional beats that Soul, Coco, Onward,
Soul's
Up,
another
Upside
fantastic
Down.
movie.
Or,
Inside Out,
Sorry.
Inside Out,
Inside Out was a-
destroyed me.
Oh,
Actually,
God.
you know what? It's actually kind of funny that you mentioned that sequence in Toy Story 2, because I feel like that was the turning point where Pixar had discovered that, you know what, our audience now, like they're at that point where they're growing up.
Yeah, they're
So
willing to deal with it too. Yeah.
yeah,
Oh my God.
you're
It's
absolutely.
and that song.
Oh, go ahead.
It's I get annoyed. I get annoyed that like because of Family Guy, there's this weird
Mhm.
reputation about like Randy Newman as like the goofy, the
Right.
goofy sounding voice guy who sings about stuff. But like, God, like if you ever just sit down and read lyrics to like Randy Newman songs or like really hone in on the stuff that he's written for Pixar,
Mhm.
he is a masterclass in like songwriting and wordplay. And like there's a song, one of my favorite musicians that like not a lot of people listen to, mostly because they just don't really know him, is Harry Nilsson. Are you familiar with Harry Nilsson at all?
The name sounds familiar, but I can't put a finger on it.
So he was referred to as the Beatles' favorite band, but he was a solo musician.
Okay.
And like he produced a bunch of their solo records. Robin Williams said that he was the only person that Robin Williams couldn't hang with in a partying sense because the dude was so wild. Like he was just like, he was a mess. He was like gunning to die. You know what I mean? Like it was just wild dude. But he put out an album called Nielsen Covers Newman. And it's him doing all these piano ballad covers of Randy Newman songs. But there's a song that he does by Randy Newman called Living Without You. And it is just the saddest breakup song where it's literally just him describing things that are happening around him. So he's like, the milk truck brings the milk up, the paper hits the curb, and he's like describing all this stuff, but he's like, but I can't do anything about it because it's so hard when I'm living without you. And like hearing just this guy play a piano by himself and just singing over and over again, it's so hard living without you. You're just like, this is the most heartbreaking thing I've ever heard in my entire life. But it made me a huge fan of Newman, and I started checking out all of his other stuff, and just really, really talented dude. Like it bums me out that when I mention that I'm a Randy Newman fan, people almost immediately go in to the Family Guy impression because it's like, yeah, no, it's funny. But like he's more than that.
Right.
Right.
I mean, they nailed it with the Will Smith rapping, but haha, yeah.
Yeah. That's another
I
rabbit
got to
hole.
do the rest of this with Danny Elfman. Sorry, I rewatched Blue Harvest recently. Oh man. All right, let me try to wrap this up.
Yeah,
oh my goodness.
Good times.
Whew. Absolutely
Yep, good times
fantastic.
all ahead. Yeah, my dog's getting angry with me because
Mine's
my
right
dog-
outside the door. He's ready for attention.
yeah, well, no, mine's ready for bed. If we're not in bed by a certain time, she gets like all like panty and just mad. She was actually trying to bump my laptop off of my bed.
Oh,
You're not spoiled, are you? No, you're not. You're just a big
Yes, you
baby.
ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us. Thank you for listening. Matt, thank you for joining us.
Yes,
We
thank you so
greatly,
much. This has been
greatly
so
appreciate
much
it.
fun.
This has been a
Anytime,
blast.
anytime.
We will definitely be contacting you again because this was an amazing time. Love to, when the world stops turning, we'd love to actually sit and meet you guys at a con or something in person.
For sure.
That would be
Absolutely.
Especially
great.
since we all apparently live a lot closer than I thought we did.
Right?
So-
Mhm.
So, thank you, Matt, for joining us. Thank you guys for listening. As always, like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, subscribe on YouTube, and hit the little bell on your YouTube app so you don't miss an upload. Subscribe to us on Spotify, because guess what? We're on Spotify now. So,
Woo! And
Spotify, Anchor, so many others.
before I forget too, please check out Horror Movie Night on Spotify. Matt, if you want to give us some links to, if you want to send us some links that we can, upload some of your other work, some of your other shows that you're working on.
Absolutely. And I'll just do a quick roll call of everything. So,
All right,
Matt Kelly, host of Horror Movie Night and co-host of Christmas 365, producer of One Hit Thunder and the Roaring 20s podcast, and my favorite episode of I also run WeKnowPodcasting.com, and giving a shout out to what I still think is one of the best podcasts that any of my friends make. If you're into fantasy, D&D type stuff, but you're also a fan of improv comedy, check out 91 Donkey Lane, a fully improvised podcast of two friends who live in a magical apartment but are too busy fighting about who ate what food out of the fridge to realize that they're surrounded by trolls and mythical creatures.
That sounds absolutely amazing.
I love it. I love it.
It's a great show.
I'm sold.
But thank you everyone for listening. Matt, thank you for coming on. And we will see you guys next time.